Stacey Luces and Denise Williams, my co-host and co-founder for We Whistle Global, and this is the We Whistle podcast. So today we've got a special guest. I won't give it away yet.
I'm excited.
But as you know, on this podcast, we try to ground conversations around three big sort of enterprise pillars that we think most humans desire. One is wealth, but not in the traditional sense only, i.e. financial wealth, but health wealth, relationship wealth, network wealth. And so we'll talk a lot about that. And the second pillar is community. And not only networking for business cards reason, but networking in the true sense of building relationships, building emotional capital so that not only does it enrich your life, but it enriches some of the things we just talked about in the wealth category. And the third one is legacy. And most of us are thinking about legacy in the sense of not only am I leaving the biggest library? We'd all love to leave a library, but definitely legacy now for a lot of us is, did my life matter? Is what I'm doing making sense for the next generation? Are my children proud of what I do? Heck, do they even know what I'm doing? So we're going to wrap all of these sort of things, wealth, community, legacy, into the conversations that we have with guests. And today's interesting, right? So I met our guest, Dominic Lewis. Dom, say hi.
Hi. Boom.
Yes. I met Dom a couple of months ago, so about a year and a half ago. And I sort of scoped him out before we met for breakfast. We were meeting kind of for Whistle. And the one word that stood out for me in his, and I don't know if it was his bio or his socials, was equanimity. And it's one of my favorite words. And immediately I was like, I know what that guy's about. And so as soon as I met him, you know, I led with that because it was such, I felt a way to connect, but also I wanted to learn more. And we want to use that word equanimity today as sort of our, the foundation of this conversation. And if you don't know what that word is, well, are you really from the Caribbean? Because
well, we're going to find out.
We know a lot of vocabulary, right?
Really
Right. And a part of this is, when we build wealth, we can sometimes feel disconnected when we have the title, when we've done all the right things. And for many of our guests that you've heard on here, including Denise and I, and Dom's story, you'll understand that on the outside, we made it. We have the title. We have the accolades. We certainly have the degrees. And yet we still have this sense of isolation at the top. And it's one of the first things that we connected with, Denise and I. It's one of the first things we use as we build Whistle. And I want to say that real leadership right now, we're not just asking what's the next level up in the career ladder. It's how am I creating scalability? How am I creating influence? Am I doing the right thing? Am I feeling the right way? And for a lot of us, it's an uncomfortable sensation to feel like I made it and I should be happy, but I'm still not feeling fulfilled. And it leads us to think that we failed in some way. So I want to hand this over to Denise to introduce Dom properly. And also, we want to kind of lead into that word equanimity as we go through this conversation, not in the sense of like calm and tranquil, even though those things sound really good right now, but in the sense of having that clarity around your sense of purpose, who you are, and how you build wealth, community, and legacy. Denise.
And Stacey, we talk a lot about wealth, community, and legacy. This podcast is also about Caribbean excellence. And our guest today is really doing Caribbean excellence his way. And I think that's why we're so excited to talk to Dom. I've known Dom a little longer than Stacey. Like so many of us, we're carnival friends, we're liming friends, we're friends who have friends in common. But I've admired him as a leader in his space who is doing things a little differently from what we usually think leadership is. And so Dom is Trini. So yay!
No, I'm kidding.
He's actually from, let's see how many of us are real Trinis. He's from Gasparillo, Trinidad. He left Trinidad when he was 17 years old and moved to DC, came to study medicine. And then after some time in DC, making the rounds, interacting with Black excellence in DC, building his network. He moved to Florida with his family. And so he's a dad. And I think I want to delve into some of that today. He's a dad and he's now the president of FTG Orthopedics. So he's an orthopedic surgeon. But to say that's what defines Dom is not quite what he is. He's a surgeon. He's a leader in culture. He's a lover of carnival. He's a lover of sports. I believe he had a athletic scholarship. So he played football and still plays, if you want to call it that, right, Dom?
Not really. I play watching TV.
And he's a whistler. So, Dom, welcome. Welcome to the We
Thank
Whistle
you for having me. This
podcast.
is long overdue, by the way.
We can't wait to
But I
dive.
appreciate it.
Yeah. So, Dom, I want to start off. You are like most of us. Well, let me backtrack. You are deeply connected to not only Trinidad, but the Caribbean itself, the region.
Yes.
Yes. And for some of us like me, I would claim this. I sort of still stayed involved in the culture for decades while living in America and converting to all of the things, but didn't stay in the culture. And so tell me how your rootedness, your Trini vibe, that culture, and I think that's one of the words we talked about a lot, right? The vibe, the vibration of the Caribbean. How have you led with this big chest up that both in school, both as an immigrant to this country, and in sort of a leader right now in your community and sort of running a business?
Well, honestly, it wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I moved here, that was my first time in America, to tell you the truth. I knew nothing. My roommate was Jamaican. We shared the same birthday. He was a year early. No, I went to American University. And he was Jamaican. Shared the same birthday. And, it was kind of like new space.
Dom, I feel like he's a Libra.
No, my wife is a Libra.
Oh, big up wifey. Reverend wifey.
My father is a Libra. My grandmother.
Give it all Libra vibes.
I have a whole lot of Libras in my life. August 4th.
Okay.
Leo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
My son's
Okay.
So you had this fellow.
Obama is lucky to share my birthday.
So you had this birthday with this Jamaican guy sharing a dorm. How did he help you kind of?
Well, we actually came in the same time. He was just a year earlier because honestly, the truth is starting college at 17 is a year early.
Yes.
I left Trinidad in lower 6. So I officially had another year to go in school. But I left and I went to school. And so it was a strange place. Didn't know anything about anything, but I always felt, comfortable in my skin. And I've always been a observant type of person. So, I've always been able to get along. So I had a great time. I had a great time in undergrad. At the end of undergrad, I actually had no idea what to do. I was a chemistry major. Had no idea what to do. You talked about biology. I was like, I don't know what to do. And the chair of the chemistry department was like a mom to me. She, it's interesting because at that time, it was rare for a woman to be the chair of a chemistry department. So she was deeply involved in that.
Oh, let's name her. What's her name?
Her name was Naina Rausha. She's since left us. But she kind of took me on like a son. She didn't have kids. And she said to me, well, why don't you come back here and do a PhD in chemistry? It's like, okay. Then she was like, we'll pay for it. We'll give you a stipend and everything. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I stayed around the team, kind of almost being like an assistant coach, helped bring some other trainees up to the school and everything, some of whom are pretty famous, like Avery John, for example.
Wow.
And then, I did that. I hated the thought of having to live the rest of my life writing grant proposals. So about 2 years in, I was doing research at the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology. And I would show up there 8 o'clock in the morning, set up my experiments. And by like 10 o'clock, I'm bored bored out of my mind. So I was like, I can't do this. I gotta find something else to do. And I also learned at the time that I can't do a 9 to 5 because for me, my time is probably the most valuable commodity I have. And that's what I learned about.
What an amazing thing to know at that age.
You were what, 18 now? 18,
No,
19?
this is, I'm 20-ish.
20. Oh, right.
Yeah.
You did your...
Yeah, I finished undergrad. I finished at 20, so I had to have fake ID the whole time in college. And so my best
We'll
friend
delete that.
from home, a guy named Paul Boyce, was in medical school at Emory at the time. And he's like, well, why don't you come down here and see if you like this? Now, I had no interest in medicine. I didn't like blood. I hated the smell of hospitals. I just like that stuff was kind of...
Crazy.
Yeah, didn't like it. But I said, you know what, all right, and went down there, spent a week with him, went to classes with him, and I was like, you know what, I could do this because honestly, the subject matter is stuff I was familiar with. So I was like, I could do this. So I applied, decided to go to Georgetown for medical school. So I went to Georgetown for medical school. Then at the end of medical school, I applied for residencies and I got accepted at Howard to do orthopedic surgery. Well, in all honesty, that was a real culture shift for me, right?
Absolutely, because AU and Georgetown.
Right, AU, Georgetown. And honestly, that period of time is probably like, you know, your real transition to adulthood
Right.
type thing. So I always say I honestly became a man or grew up, became an adult, I should say, in DC,
Yeah.
in America. And it's still ongoing if you think of it that way. But so then when I went to Howard, now DC is interesting, right? DC is like chocolate city. In DC, as a Black person, or even as a foreigner, you never really feel like, you know, like the spotlight is on you in a weird way. Like, oh, people are not like, oh my God, where are you from? I can't understand. Because
Dom, did you go to Crossroads?
I went to Crossroads all the time.
So we had one.
Oh, what's
club.
Crossroads?
One club.
One time, Marshall was
Yes.
in Crossroads.
I was
I
in
went
that
on,
fete.
yeah. And I remember
On a waltz. I'm sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, I saw him outside and he was like, hey, because
And it
he
was
was like 2
normal
years
things,
behind
yeah.
me. And he was like, hey, you want to go with me? And I was like, no, I'm
You
good.
remember the West Indian Record Mart?
Yeah.
So talk to me about, I want to pull on something you said and then I'll hand it over to Denz because I want to give Denise credit for this. I, like you, grew up in DC. So I came in at 17, lived in Maryland, went to school, worked in DC and stuff. I didn't connect the dot until you said it, Denz, where you said you were kind of surrounded by not necessarily Caribbean excellence, but Black excellence.
Like diaspora wide.
Yes.
Black
Lawyers,
excellence.
accountants, engineers, and even Georgetown. Like I even at Maryland.
One of my mentors at Georgetown was a young Black surgeon who was the head of transplant.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to have, you know, to have a guy like that to look up to, you know, Dr. Johnson. I can't remember his first name now. But yeah, and so DC, I always describe DC. Like I always say I kind of got lucky.
Yeah.
When I left Trinidad, I moved to DC and in Trinidad, yeah, like in Trinidad, the ruling class looks like me.
Right.
In DC, you know, there's like the federal government, but honestly, there is so much Black excellence in DC. Like I always say, you could go to the finest restaurant in DC and nobody looks at you awkwardly. They'll welcome you.
I still call their home.
Yeah,
Like
it's like my second home.
When I go to dinner
For
there,
sure.
when I go to a party there, if I visit my sisters still live there. And it's a nostalgia, but it's also I didn't appreciate it until moving to Florida when that's not the case. Any room I walk into, it's
But Dom, you're in DC. You're surrounded by Black excellence. You're moving into a career that wasn't planned, but you're sort of guiding. You're looking around. You had a couple of mentors on the way, and now you're in Howard. What was that like for you as in your formative years when you're now emerging as this young leader?
So I'd always gone to Howard in the sense that I always had friends from Trinidad who were at Howard. We'd always play against Howard. So the Trini or Caribbean footballers at Howard knew I would know them. And, I'd go over there for Caribbean parties, like the Caribbean Student Association over there.
Which was strong, right?
Yeah, it was functioning
Still is,
like
yeah.
mine.
You're right.
So I still know a lot of that's kind of where I came in touch with the Caribbean diaspora and even like the African diaspora
Right.
in residency. But in undergrad, I used to take the bus from Upper Northwest, which, it was funny because they wouldn't, when it snowed, they wouldn't plow our streets because that area, that ward, didn't vote for Marion Barry.
Mm.
And I had cousins that would tell me all the time, how do you feel to live in the murder capital? And I would be like, I don't even know what you're talking about because I was living in like a suburb in DC.
Some of that naiveness served us well,
It did. Like I remember being on the bus going from AU to Howard, and you could see the gradations of society as you go across town. I remember that distinctly. So then, in residency, Howard Medicine is like a step up on the diaspora because everybody is now accomplished. Everybody now, in the sense that you got into medical school, you this, so everybody has some level of confidence in who they are to some extent, right? And there you're meeting, like you're meeting guys like there was a guy named LaSalle Lafal, who would be one of the grand poobahs of medicine as a Black man in America. Charles Epps, who recently just passed. These are some of the first surgeons, Black surgeons in America. Charles Epps was an orthopedic surgeon, and then one of my more direct mentors is a guy named Anthony Rankin, who he actually became the first Black person to be the president of the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. So it's like I don't even want to say this, but it's almost like being at Harvard, but it's at Howard because it's excellence. And I could tell you for certain, everybody that was there could be anywhere.
Yeah, but you stayed in touch with them.
Well,
at least a lot of your peers. Yeah,
I did. I mean, honestly, I would say the experience really changed my life and focused me. So you ask about the Caribbean part. Mm-hmm. Honestly, until I went to Howard, I probably was drifting. I mean, like I said, I would always go to the occasional party and stuff, but I was in this sort of I was in this white world essentially.
Yeah.
That, I was comfortable. I've never really had any kind of racial issue or anything at any time, in all honesty. And I was comfortable. But it was when I went to Howard for residency is really when like the whole, like the Caribbean, everything just sort of came together. And I knew that, so I started going back home for Carnival and stuff. And that's, I always loved Carnival.
Yeah.
But, in school, you can't really go back because you can't. But then in residency is actually when I started going back to Carnival. And it's also when I was like, okay, it's almost like you found purpose.
Right. So a couple of things started happening. And Stacey and I, when we talk about why we built Whistle, right? So you're starting to grow up. You're stopping. You're no longer drifting. You're seeing excellence around you that you could relate to. Your story's being told differently. You, as a young Black man, you're framing your story and you're finding your identity. You go back to Trinidad to immerse yourself in that identity, but still you have this point of reference of excellence. And one of the reasons why we do this podcast is because we want to change our point of reference globally, right? Because some of the names that you call, if we look deeper, I'm sure we can find Caribbean references in their heritage. And it's not to say, oh, there's only excellence in the Caribbean. No, there is more than that. But somehow our excellence has been muted to sports and culture, where again,
the current president of Howard is a guy named Wayne Fredericks.
Absolutely. Big up Wayne Fredericks.
Yeah, at the time, my
Even
freshman
the mayor
year
of Maryland. I'm sorry, the governor of Maryland.
Yeah,
Maryland, yes.
I think he has Bayesian roots or something.
Is it Jamaican or Bayesian?
One of
Something.
those.
Caribbean roots, yeah.
So Wayne Fredericks, when I was in undergrad, he was still in undergrad, transitioning into medical school. So I knew him basically when I moved up to DC because his best friend is Shaka Hislop,
right?
His best friend, and Shaka played at Howard. Shaka was a senior when I was a freshman at American. So I know Shaka, I know I know Kona better from the standpoint of Kona was like a year ahead of me. So, but all those, sort of networks or connections, just, at some point they really blossom.
And they started to form.
And they start to make sense in the wider scheme of
talk
things.
More about that, right? Because one of the things I think we are uncovering is people underestimate how deep their connections are, their network, and they underestimate how much they have helped their network grow. So in other words, I don't want to say they're not capitalizing on it, but they're not looking at it as a strategic tool to amplify some of the important things in their life.
Right.
The way other diasporas, the Jewish community or the Black, African American community leverage that. I don't know that the Caribbean diaspora does it enough.
I kind of have some theories about that.
Please tell us.
We love tea on this.
So my introduction to the Caribbean diaspora was DC, Howard, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So sometimes, I like to call America kind of the great equalizer, even for Trinis, because you would know somebody from Trinidad who you probably would never interact with in Trinidad. But then out here, you could become fast friends because you have this thing in common that for some reason becomes bigger than whatever the small things.
I never kept you apart. I never thought of it like that. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
And the same thing is true in the Caribbean. So in the Caribbean, there are all these little sibling rivalry type things, I'm from Trinidad, you're from Jamaica, I'm from Barbados.
And we're like, what does that even mean?
Aye.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But then you're out here and honestly it's like sometimes you hear
let's
you
roll.
hear a Jamaican accent and it's the only familiarity that you hear and you're like, because I didn't even know the Jamaican accent other than in dub before I came here. So my roommate was Jamaican and we had another Jamaican guy that came, but his accent was strong. And I remember the guys would look to me to translate. And I would be like, I don't know what, I don't know what he's saying, but, and then the first time I went to Jamaica was with my roommate. And I got to realize that we're the same.
Yes.
We're the same. And then with Howard, that's where I met the African diaspora. Although at AU, one of my roommates was from the Ivory Coast. But, it wasn't, we're still in contact and everything. But it's really at Howard that it all came together. Yeah. Like I started to understand the bigger picture on who I am, who I want to be, what I want to represent.
So let's talk about kids, right?
Yeah.
So all your kids born in Florida?
In Florida, yeah.
So they, for the most part, probably won't have the experience you had.
No.
Right. How are you navigating their lived experience in a way that closes the gap?
So I noticed recently, right, probably in the past couple of years, that there is a generation. So I have younger kids. My oldest kid is 13. I have a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 9-year-old.
You could
Names,
heal
call
them
the
out.
names, call the names, hail
So
them up.
Chloe is my
Hey,
13-year-old.
Chloe.
She's like emotionally intelligent woman. Keegan is my 10-year-old boy. He is like very earnest, very smart kid, loves to read, loves to learn. Cameron is my youngest one. He is how should I say? He's very smart, but very strong in personality, very strong in purpose, knows what he's about, and is competitive. So last year,
Yes,
for
it's a
example,
Karen too.
and Karen's my wife. So I'll even put it to you this way.
Yeah.
I
When
met
did you meet Karen?
I met Karen because one of my classmates in residency, a guy named Julian Cameron, right? He and I were really tight. So we would go all over the place hanging out, In fact, when I started to really go back to carnival and stuff, would be him and I, we'd go everywhere. Karen is his first cousin. So I met her through him.
Uh-huh.
And the first time, and then the second time I actually met her was at his wedding. And she
gave me three beautiful kids.
Oh, she did. I mean, listen, I've always been blessed. I've always been lucky. I don't take it for granted. I got to keep giving it back.
All right. So go back to the
kids.
gap. Yeah.
Sticking
So
on
the kids now, what I realize is there's a generation, like even Julian, he has some older kids, and there are people who have kids that say I would say almost in the 18 to 25, 27 range, right? Those kids are very interested in where they are from. In a way that I remember when I was in college, the college kids were. So the college kids wanted to do, a semester in Spain or to London or something like that because they wanted to go check out their heritage, right? And I didn't really, maybe I was not around enough Black kids in college or people who had the means to just do what they want like that. But I remember specifically these kids, summertime, would put on a backpack
and head out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just go to Europe, staying in some hostel or something. And like, they're just there. And like the thought of doing that was like,
what?
Like, I couldn't even imagine that. Well, these kids, that generation between 18 and 25 now, I think they're doing that, but not to Europe. They're going back to the islands.
Right.
They're going to the carnivals. They're going to see those things, which I think is a really, really good thing. I think ultimately it'd be great. So for me, I think we're trying to take them back. Well, they eat all our food. They hear the music, Christmas music. Yes. Christmas, that's all I play.
And they know all
cool. The soca.
Yeah. We doing that since years now.
Yeah. And I try to take them back, not just to Trinidad though. I want them to see all over the Caribbean. So last year alone, we went to Jamaica, Barbados, and Trinidad. We're gonna go to Trinidad next month, I guess, or something like that. But like, you have to invest. You have to invest in it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's
why do you think it's important to take your kids to the island when there's a whole big world for them?
They'll see that.
Yeah.
And like they need to see all of it.
Yes.
I mean, last year we did a trip to Europe. They need to see all of it. But I think, okay, I'll put it to you on another level. I was born and raised Catholic. I went to President Trinidad, which is Catholic school. and
Big up
Georgetown
Presentation College, San
really-
Fernando.
And Georgetown was like a really Catholic school.
Right.
I'm not that, I
You
I'm not
shifted.
that
You
into religion per se as
Mhm.
much, and on some weird level, this is hard to say, but I'll say it. I often wonder how any black man could be, like Christian,
right.
given
Right.
the
That's
history.
a whole nother
It's a whole
discussion.
other
Yes.
discussion.
Yes.
But my kids go
I'm
to
sure
Catholic
there's a
school.
podcast for that, Don.
Probably. But my kids go to Catholic school
Mhm.
because I do think there was a whole lot of value
The discipline.
in the discipline, and like I think learning about God is a good thing.
Yeah.
And having that discipline, I always say, I was born a Catholic. I probably die a Catholic because I'm okay with the rituals.
Yes.
If I was born Muslim, I'd probably die a Muslim because, I think the greatest
The rituals are important,
yeah, the
right?
rituals are
Mhm.
important. So it's
Listen,
cool.
I went on a excursion with myself, mentally and emotionally, in my 20s to discover religion in the sense of what makes being a Muslim different from a Hindu, from a Christian. And the beautiful thing about growing up in the islands is we have such mad respect and we honor like all
the
religions,
religions.
right?
Do every
I
holiday.
liked so
I
much
would
Dia
say-
and took so much communion,
Yes.
right? But at the end of the day, and my husband and I chuckle about this all the time, at the end of the day, whether it's a hadith from the Muslim religion or you read the Bhagavad Gita or you do the whatever, right? If you loosely live by the 10 commandments, which are replicated in each and every religion, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to be smitten by lightning if you have that piece of pork, right? But I want to dig into, you said something so powerful, which is one, be intentional with the generation and ourselves, right? But what would it mean for the diaspora, global diaspora, not just America, if we think bigger, where that generation you're hitting on, that 18 to 25-year-old, even younger,
Yeah.
right? You got to catch them in middle school. Because middle school, man, I think I have a 19-year-old and a soon-to-be 16-year-old. And I think that middle school is where we either lose them or they lock into a sense of confidence in themselves that takes them
Yep.
very far.
Right.
And so that vulnerable stage between 13 and 17, where, they're prone to all the madness, right? How can we create, Denise and I like to talk about bridges and ladders, right? But how can we as a diaspora do that in a way that, yes, we go back and we appreciate the music and the dancing and the food, of course. You're growing up in a Caribbean household and you go there and you have to do whatever. But what can we do as a diaspora to really have a strategy around making it more purposeful so that there's an economic and a future, like they could see themselves in the
There's
future.
a
of the Caribbean.
longevity, right? There's a
That's the point of whistle.
Yes.
That is the point of whistle
Yeah.
on some level. You
I knew that. I was just carrying the
you,
whole
yeah,
but,
you need to. It's like the Howard experience
yeah.
from a younger age, right?
Yeah.
You need to see
You need to hear your
and hear.
story.
You need to see
an experience.
and
Yes.
experience excellence.
And
And you
just
need to- it
talking
needs
to
to-
you,
it needs
I've
to
gained
ser-
like so many light bulbs
Yeah.
from working with Denise and her experience. Like there's a texture to what we're doing that, man, in 5 years.
Well, we also, at
Yeah.
Whistle too, we also want to be really deliberate about those ladders and bridges, right?
Have to be intentional. in
Because
general.
I'll tell you, when we were responding to what happened in Jamaica, and I say this, hurricane season is coming up again. It's not the first time. It's not going to be the last time. But there's so much expertise and so many people wanting to connect back home, whether it's Trinidad, Barbados, St. Lucia, Turks and Caicos, wherever, Cayman, just being deliberate about who am I in the world as a parent, how do I raise my child so that they can be global, but very rooted in where I've come from, because it is a beautiful place where, as you say, from your religious diversity to the way you see the world to understanding the There's no ceiling because I grew up thinking I could be the prime minister, doctor, lawyer, or even a
That's
farmer,
important.
by the way. Whichever which way. And now you want to give your children the best of those
Options,
worlds.
right? That they-
Options.
I
and-
live by options. I always say my favorite lyric in music is Bob Marley said, "Every man has a right to decide his own destiny."
Mm.
I interpret that to mean, like Shadow has a song about planting peas in Tobago. So if you want to plant peas in Tobago and that makes you happy,
Yeah.
Yes.
go for it.
Yep. It would be the
If
orchids
you
for
want
me.
to be a billionaire, go for it. But you just have to know that there are certain requirements that you need to sort of engender to get to eat of those goals. You can't say you want to be to plant peas in Tobago and Fred Bush. You know what I
Or
mean?
you don't
Or
even
be a
know.
doctor and you're afraid blood, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Well, they can overcome.
Oh, yeah. Hey, no, you cannot.
You can. Trust me, you can.
Shout out to Chris Butteram. I don't even know if he's alive, but this boy sat next to me in chemistry and we were doing the cut your finger to look at the. He slid right off the stool into a puddle on the ground. And of course, from the Caribbean, we laugh, we ass off. I mean, we made
Let
sure
me
he was
tell you
okay.
a story.
But anyway.
I shouldn't tell you this,
No, tell me.
but I'll tell you a story. First time I went to the operating room in medical school, in third year of medical school, that's when they put you on the wards, essentially. First time I went to the operating room, it was a C-section.
Dang, they took you there?
A C-section. Wow.
I remember, I'm a surgeon. Surgery is really about precision. C-sections, there's a time factor that is important. You need to get the baby
it's
out.
kind of
Right?
brutal, yeah.
I wouldn't say that, but
I could say it.
yeah, you can. But I remember surgeries. It wasn't a surgery that bothered me. It's when they pulled the baby out, right? She was a black lady, but the baby looked kind of gray to me. And it shrieked. I was like, oh gosh, don't look. So I'm at the operating table. I turn away. And I'm like, okay. Breathe, relax. Finally, I'm like, okay, the baby's probably gone now. I turn back, see the baby, straight out.
Did you faint?
Hit my head on the...
Guys, this was a whistle exclusive.
You know what the lesson I learned from that was?
Tell us.
Don't lock your knees. If you feel faint, don't lock your knees.
Lead into it, guys.
Just,
Just
let your
skedaddle to
knees,
the ground.
let your knees flex a little bit. You will slump.
Yeah.
If your knees lock,
You go back.
it'd be like timber.
Yeah. Don't say we never teach
So,
on anything.
so Dom, that's amazing, right? Here is a doctor afraid of blood, first surgery, commits the worst thing that could happen, right?
Denise is
'Cause
really going there.
I'm going
My
there.
whole class knew.
But here's what I want to know. What was the recovery process? How did you, because I'm looking at you
Oh,
now
I
at
love
the
that
top of your
question.
game,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Very interesting.
And I love the fact that you're coming from, there's nowhere else to go. You've hit the floor.
And the whole class knew by the next day. But very interestingly, the head doctor was a guy named Dr. Chabo, Tchabo, a guy from, I think he was Cameroonian.
Yeah, that,
He used to do all of the complicated things at Georgetown, right? All the complicated cases. So he was, again, in this sort of sea of whiteness, it was this one black dude
right?
who happened to be the head dude. And the case was over essentially. So he took off his scrubs, came over to me, hugged me, walked me out the room,
Wow.
gave me a glass of orange juice and said, "You'll be all right, Docky."
Oh, yeah.
And
I
then,
love
and then honestly,
That's so
it
much
becomes normal.
compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you gotta have, somebody's gotta recognize you. It's compassion. Somebody say,
Yeah.
you'll be okay. This is part of it.
I'm
But,
not the first and I won't be the
and you won't be.
last.
I want to stay with your career just for a little bit. So we've been talking about your heritage. We've been talking about your journey into recognizing excellence. Tell us how you went from this residency into now delving into a practice where you're shaping medicine your way.
That's a journey in and of itself that's ongoing.
Yes.
So
Thread that word equanimity in there.
Yeah.
Yes. And let's hear about this equanimity.
Yeah. So I came to equanimity maybe, or at least knowing the word and thinking of it and reflecting on it for myself, probably, I don't know, maybe like 5-7 years ago. I don't know. I was, like sometimes you're on this treadmill that they call life. And, I always say my favorite book is The Alchemist.
Yes, I'm rereading it now.
I've read it about 3 times. And the reason I like it is I listened to it. I listened to it. There's one with Jeremy Irons as the narrator. And you could see, like, when I'm listening to it, I could see everything,
Yes.
right? But what I like about it is the bottom line for me is like you follow the omens, like, so life has always been sort of a treadmill for me. Like I just keep moving and somehow, I find myself where I need to be or things work out. Like that's how it's always been. So after residency, I did a fellowship in Birmingham, Alabama.
Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
Very
So-
different from
Dude,
DC.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Talk
So
about a
I
culture
was
shock.
told, in the roast that we have for the chief residents before you leave, they gave me 2 books. One was Remembering Jim Crow, and the other one was Forgetting Right Now. But basically, the joke was they said to me, that mouth, they will kill you down there.
Yeah.
But when I got there, they said, they told me, hey, don't go here, don't go there, you'll be all right. And it was fine.
This was early 2000. When was
This would have
Early
been
2000?
2006.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a great time in Alabama. I had some good friends living in Atlanta. So every weekend, it's like 2 hours away, I would go there. I had a great time. It's great because this is, again, these are the kinds of things that happen. So at Georgetown, when you go to the Starbucks, it was always Black people working at Starbucks.
Right.
They'd always have a coffee waiting for
Mm-hmm.
right? So in Alabama, in the doctor's lounge, the wait staff in the doctor's lounge, sometimes you're operating and you don't get time to go to lunch. When I show up, they would always have something set aside. So it's sometimes to your advantage to be the only.
Yes.
And, you have to treat people good. And if you treat people good, they'll take care of you. So I left there, came down here.
To Florida.
Mm-hmm. And I joined this group that was a private group. That was the biggest group at the time in Aventura. The group had been, or has been, or I should say, the group existed for about 40 years, I would say. I was on the treadmill. Life is just going good. I'm just...
You're doing well.
And then
practice is growing.
And then there's this one shakeup with, a couple of the guys are like, what happened was the older guys want to go.
One direction.
They just want to keep everything the same until they retire. The younger guys are like,
hungry.
Yeah, we got to do something here.
Right.
To blah, 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 blah. And that kind of spilled over. There was like a big coup. I was on one side. But I was on one side, but I still kind of, because I'm a relationship guy. I'm like, I'm a Switzerland kind of guy.
Right.
So, I was the one that actually had to talk to the head guy about like, hey man, just
yes,
please. And he, because like it's a lot of egos involved and it could get ugly. So it sort of worked out, but then that kind of didn't really work out either because, again, I would say, I don't even know how to say it, but sometimes people start looking out for themselves, and that would include me, even when you start looking out for yourself, or you just realize that this is not working, right? So over the past couple of years, I've been involved in essentially a business divorce, which is, like a divorce. They could be contentious at times. And I would say I'm I would like to say, I've said this before, but I feel, you know, I think we're close to the end. But in the meantime, in the past year and a half, 2 years, I started my own practice with a partner that's called FTG Orthopedics. And so we've been doing that for the past 2 years, except pretty much at the outset of it, my partner was involved in a car accident, unfortunately, and he ended up having to have surgery. So now he had to stop practicing. So pretty much I am, I'm on my own with regard to the practice. However, he and I are still trying to do some business endeavors together. So
What's different about your practice now on your own with a semi-working partnership compared to a very stable group that you came into that had you on this
Right.
trajectory in a particular way? What is Dom today?
well, I'll say the the treadmill thing is dangerous. Potentially.
We all know about the treadmill, right,
Oh, yeah.
Stacey? Yeah.
Potentially.
Yes.
There are some people, in Japan they call them company men. There's some people for whom the treadmill is probably the ideal thing, right? You don't really want to think, you just want to keep moving. Remember, back to the old story, when I realized I can't do a 9 to 5,
I was just thinking that.
I was like, like I'm a partner in the practice.
Oh yeah, but
I don't
12,
really
at
see
12,
the books.
12
Yeah.
to
12 to 12.
6.
I don't see the books, like you're supposedly a owner of a business, but you don't know anything about the business. So that's what that was like. I didn't know anything. I was like, I don't know how to order.
Procurement.
I don't know
Right.
anything
You mentioned
about
that
the
in your
business.
notes that the there's a difference between being an working for someone who takes care of all of that infrastructure.
Yeah.
And then now you're the entrepreneur, big man on campus.
Yeah. Well, I don't even think of it as
you
big
have
man
to worry
on campus.
even
It's
about
you. It's about you.
Yes.
Like you have employees
Yeah.
and their families
Yeah.
that are dependent on
you.
On you. Like I can't just wake up and say, oh, I'm not going to the office today. I can't, because there's a whole lot but with the responsibility, it drives you. I'm actually more driven now than when I was on the treadmill, because on the treadmill I couldn't,
Yeah.
like what, yeah, I mean, you make a living, but other than that, like what is the point of this? And then the other thing that that happened is I started to realize that, in this business, unless one of my kids becomes an orthopedic surgeon, I don't really have any business to pass on to them, and I never liked that.
I want to challenge all of us on that thinking.
Yeah.
In my line of like coaching, when I coach people, being in Florida specifically, a lot of us built what we thought was our legacy to pass on, because we come from that cloth, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's your store, textile, printing shop, it doesn't matter. And so we thought that the generation, our kids specifically, would take the business because we're pretty much handing them the silver pots that they've been enjoying,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And they're like, nah, I good.
A lot of them now are like, not interested in your dream, Dad.
I'm okay,
But
I want to give them the
here's
shares
the question,
Yes, the shares.
What can we do to engineer a network where you're almost mentoring, like all the things people did for you? You saw them being excellent. You're excellent. Like, how do you now think about all the wannabe orthopedic students here in
The
Florida?
ones fainting on the floor.
Yeah.
The ones
and
can't see
otherwise
blood.
to build alongside you, but also maybe at some point, if let's say your kids are not interested, I'm not picking on you specifically, But it's sort of a beautiful model that I don't know that people are exploring the way we could.
So funny enough, I think all of it is kind of like a Ponzi scheme.
I
call parenting. What is it? What do you call it? A pyramid scheme.
A pyramid scheme.
Have more.
Yeah,
It's
same
fun.
thing. It's a
Have
pyramid
more.
Ponzi.
Have more. Have
I'm
more
thinking the same
children.
thing. I feel like for good and bad. Like I don't think, like Ponzi scheme comes across as negative off the top, but I don't think it like this is something I've been working through in my head in the past few weeks, to tell you the truth. The way medicine used to work, like even law firms are similar to this. I start the practice. Eventually it's doing well. I could bring you on. I bring you on. I pay your salary. Eventually you start earning enough money that maybe I might offer you a partnership in the practice, like to be a partner in the practice. And on it goes. Well, at some point I will probably slow down, but I'll still be making a lot of income. And then you guys could take over, and it keeps going and keeps going. Now, that's the basic structure of it, which is kind of a Ponzi scheme. Right?
Yeah.
Is that bad? I don't know that it's bad.
And again, what you said is the company man, right?
Yeah.
Different strokes for
different folks.
Yeah.
Some guys don't really want to think about it.
we don't have to have a judgment on that. Some people just
Do
want,
you?
give me the rest.
In fact, like I'd say today in medicine is not really an entrepreneurial business anymore. The majority of people finishing residency these days are taking a job at like a hospital or something like that. So, like a guy like me, it's rare that you would see people, because you're taking on some juggernauts that feel no way about destroying you. That's ultimately what it is.
So it's a true big corporation.
Yeah, it's like it's the ACAs of the world are like CVS. Like how you can't find like a mom and pop pharmacy anymore.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's what's going on in medicine.
We met with a potential sponsor for Whistle. And they do, I think, insurance, life insurance, and all of that stuff. And the gentleman we met with was not nonchalant, kind of like, no, we good. And I said, like, a part of me was a little bit frustrated because nowhere in their strategy were they talking to me as part of the global diaspora with money to invest, with a radar out.
Right.
And I want to say in the wellness space and the holistic space, like me right now, it is my number one priority for me and my family. And I could say this bar none for everybody in my network right now. Finding the right providers, out of pocket or otherwise, has become
your mission.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so how can...
That's the opportunity there for you, Dom.
So let me, along that line. So back in the day, I started this WhatsApp group for, like orthopedic surgeon graduates from Howard. That I don't know how, it probably could be a couple hundred strong now, but it's like a forum. We discuss all kinds of stuff. Every day you look in there, somebody's going to throw up a case and what do you think of this, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes it could be like, hey, I just went to Carnival. It's like the entire gamut. And the more it has evolved, the more I realize, this is the kind of network that we didn't really have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes. And a lot of us still don't have it.
Right. One of my younger colleagues started something nationally for like, sort of Black orthopedic surgeons. And then here in Florida, another young doctor formed a similar WhatsApp group of Black doctors in every different specialty. So what happens these days is somebody would say, hey, Do you know any nephrologist? Because I need a nephrologist for X, Y, and Z. And so you could get some names in that network.
Is it bad? I don't know what that is.
Nephrology.
That's for kidneys.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You know,
I just
pick
know
any-
to pronounce it.
pick any specialty, and
Yes.
now you're able to refer.
And now I am looking for doctors that look like me,
So,
that are compassionate towards,
right.
especially for my parents and stuff. And I'm saying like it's such an untapped opportunity.
It is, and honestly,
But isn't
know,
that
there's
your
a big-
differentiator, though?
I believe
Yes.
so.
Is and honestly, it's not even. It's actually beyond race, to tell you the truth. Is sort of a worldview.
It's the people that put the food aside for you.
Yeah,
It's
Yes.
that level of,
yeah.
you talked about it. Denise has the flu. That's why I put her there next to Dom.
Yeah. They put me in the naughty corner. I'm sitting
But
away from them.
You said something and I immediately got it. She was we had a quick meeting,
Yeah.
and she was coughing and had fever and all of that stuff. And a lady that takes care of the family walked in and bought you honey and garlic.
Honey and cut up
Honey,
garlic
lime, and
and-
rum.
and lime. No
Miss-
rum. She didn't
Miss-
put the rum.
Miss Denise skin up she face, and the lady was like, "It's okay, just."
Just drink.
But she went about her business, and Denise said, if I were in Miami sick, probably one or two friends would check on her. But the way that even there,
The care.
everybody just
I didn't even ask for it.
That
right?
is what-
she showed up
that
in the
is
room.
what I think is the opportunity. It's you want to be around.
You want to be comfortable.
Yes.
So you want to be.
You also want to be
comfortable, right?
around people who care.
The thing about it, right, is I always say, when somebody comes to your office as a doctor, that person is vulnerable,
Yeah.
right? That person is vulnerable.
Sure. So no,
Yeah, and your job is really to comfort them, to get them settled, because you wouldn't even know what's wrong if you can't communicate.
Right.
So, like, there has to be, it starts with getting buy-in. The patients have to like you. And so about the space you're talking about, because of the same juggernaut that I've described, like the hospitals, the pharmaceutical companies, and the insurance companies, I'm trying to carve out a space outside of that, essentially. I feel like people have been investing in their health, right? People will, like, look on Instagram and see some supplement that, might.
it's haphazard.
Yeah, it's haphazard. And when you look at it, oftentimes the people promoting that stuff they're straight business people with no actual connection to healthcare. So I am trying to occupy that space of expert, trained. You're also a curator, because you have to find the good out of the needles in the haystack, and then you have to manage. So that's basically where I'm going. So as to about orthopedic surgeon and leaving something to my kids, I think you have to structure it differently.
Yes.
Not in that Ponzi scheme practice kind of thing. I think it needs to be structured as a business. So what I would leave my kids, for example, would be shares.
But you can also involve them
Yes,
on alternate path that incorporates some of what,
they learn.
yes, and some of what they want to do.
Right.
Yes.
Because I also learned part of it is you have to have the humility to realize that even in medicine, as trained as I am, I don't know all of medicine. And I'm not even talking about Western medicine. I just don't know all. You have to respect the bush medicine that your grandparents would give you.
Yes.
You have to respect it.
She's going to jar
You have
me
to
in a little
respect-
bit.
You have to respect Asian medicine. You have to respect all these things. They're not, like,
Listen, I went to an energy healer
yeah.
because I made a promise to myself. We talk about this a lot. 2 years ago that I got diagnosed with an autoimmune.
Yeah.
And I said, nothing is off the table.
No.
You know?
The task is finding the right person, because
Yes.
snake oil salesmen have always existed and they will always exist.
Right.
So before Denise wraps us up,
Yeah.
you are busy.
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 I'd like to do part 2. I like
so.
Stay tuned for part 2 of the Dom
You are busy.
episode.
You are committed to, I don't want to say reinventing, but carving out this niche in a way that's different from the treadmill you've been on. Yet, you still find time for what Whistle, the potential of Whistle.
Yes.
Bringing together global leaders of Caribbean heritage to accelerate wealth, community, and legacy. Why is that important to you personally? Like, what the potential of Whistle? If we do it, when we do it right.
Well, it goes back to like the Howard experience, right? I can tell you exactly. I remember I used to do this Big Brother program when I was in Howard. I used to have like this inner city kid who would come, he'd come stay with me for a little bit. I would show him stuff, we'd talk about stuff. But I remember I always like to talk to kids even in practice. And if you ask, I remember you'd ask these suburban kids, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? I'd say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, something like that, right? Then you ask, like an inner city kid, what do you want to do when you grow up? And then they oftentimes start with something in sport, but I'd always say, no. It can't be football, basketball, or anything like that. Then they would say, oftentimes I'd hear something like, well, I want to be a mechanic, or I want to be a hairdresser, or something like that. And it used to perplex me. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like, I'm like, I don't understand that. But then I got to realize that the point is mentorship. You only know what you know. In the neighborhood that kid came from, potentially,
That's what
the guy who has the Cadillac or the guy who's doing the best is the mechanic. So you only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. Even more important than only knowing what you know is you don't know what you don't know. So I understand that mentoring is vital, and that's what Whistle really is about. Even for an accomplished person, there are tasks that they are trying to accomplish that for some reason they just can't figure it out.
That part.
Yep.
Some people, they just can't, and you will run into somebody who'd be like, just pick this up and do this.
Yeah.
But also, and I see this very aware that, we still are very privileged in the lives that we live.
Very.
Is as much as we advance, we still aren't invited to certain rooms. And so I think this is an opportunity for us to expand that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So I'll hand it over to Denise.
And listen, it was such a privilege to speak with you today.
So good.
Dom, how can we find you? We want to.
So not good at this
We
stuff.
want to approach you. We want to find you. We want to talk about. We want to doctor the
Just give them
kids.
Instagram. Your bio is there.
My
Your
Instagram
link,
is, my personal Instagram is @Dumpalouis. That's like it's like a long
We're
story.
gonna tag you in all of the
Dumpalewie. My company practice is at FTG _ortho, ORTHO. The website is ftgortho.com. I will get better at this whole online thing. I don't even carry business cards.
Hey, as long as you didn't faint away.
Listen,
Very well.
And you might know me as Dumper.
Listen, FTG, you just Google it up. It's about Caribbean excellence in a different way. Today we had the privilege of speaking to Dominic Lewis, a father, a husband, an aficionado of culture, and really somebody who embodies Caribbean excellence because he understands the importance of exposure. He has benefited from great mentors. And when he was down flat on the ground, someone picked him up. And as you can see, he has been picking up through his mentorship programs, through what he's doing now, daring to change, daring to step off of the treadmill if you know someone who this story would really resonate with them, then put them onto the podcast. We look forward to hearing so much more about Dom, going back and listening to this podcast. You can find us, subscribe, hit that like button, send Dom a comment, encourage him on in his new sphere. And Dom, thank you so much.
Thank
Stacey,
you.
Yeah, and
Thank
our
you.
handle everywhere is at We Whistle. Yes, like whistling.
yes, flow like whistle. Thank you. See you on the other side.